So about a couple weeks ago, I think it's a couple weeks ago, maybe it's more, maybe less, doesn't really matter, I went to urgent care. Now, I feel like relatively overall pretty healthy. I work out about 5 days a week. I do yoga here and there, meditate. I have other processes and tools for relaxing and managing stressful thoughts. So I feel like a relatively healthy person, but I was noticing that my heart was racing, and this came on the back of being told within the past couple years a handful of times. I don't remember specifically, I think it was when I went to give blood and maybe at another point, that I had elevated blood pressure. So when I was told that I had elevated blood pressure, I kind of started, that was in the back of my mind. And then there were other things along the way that kind of got into my head, and I found myself over like a 2 or 3 day span noticing at times my heart racing, and it was scary to me. I placed negative meaning on it. I didn't know what was happening. I couldn't really tell if it was racing because it was racing or because I was thinking thoughts that were making it race, and it felt very confusing. And so I decided at one point to just go to urgent care to rule anything major out. And that gave me a little bit of relief for a short period of time. And then I was right back where I started after getting, getting an EKG done and saying everything looked fine. But then, at the urgent care, the nurse practitioner saying you should probably go make a doctor's appointment and, just figure out if there is anything going on. And so I've done that, and I have had some other tests done, and so far everything is coming up normal, with the exception of a slightly elevated heart rate from I wore a Holter monitor for 24 hours, and they said it came back normal, but that I had elevated heart rate. So I'm going to see a cardiologist. But within the past month, all of this having transpired, I was faced with moments of extreme anxiety. I wouldn't call them full-blown panic attacks, but just really fearful thoughts about death, just feeling very afraid and very anxious. Thoughts about having to go to the ER, thoughts about being stuck at the ER, thoughts about, not being sure if I should go to the ER, if I'm creating all of this, just all of these kind of stressful, confusing, panicky, fearful thoughts. And it got to a point that it was so uncomfortable because it's like I almost couldn't focus on other things. I couldn't focus on my work. I wasn't able to really have fun or relax. And it finally got to a point where I realized how I had gotten there. And that's what I want to share with you. So if you've ever gotten to a point, or if you're watching this and you're in that state of like feeling panic, you have the ability, you created that feeling of how you feel now, so you therefore have the ability to create a better feeling. It might not be with the snap of your fingers, and I'm just saying this based off my own experience. This is what worked for me. This is what kind of flipped the switch. I realized that when I had been told that I had elevated blood pressure, from there grew this tree of like negative thinking and negative emotion in relation to my heart and my body. And I didn't catch it, and it just kept growing. And it finally got to the point where it felt so horrible that I ended up doing something about it because it felt so horrible. And by doing something about it, I mean trying to understand it, trying to figure out like how, or actually just wanting to feel better. There's such a strong desire to like not feel that panicky feeling. Just feeling panic and fear just is one of the worst feelings. And I realized that I had built up this momentum in this particular direction of this negative direction. And in a moment I realized that if I had the capability to do that, then I had the capability to create momentum in a different direction. And that realization alone is kind of what was the most powerful part of all of this. And then from there, I feel like what transpired, I want to share some of like the little things that I feel like were helpful as well. But that was the like kind of the big shift, was if I have the ability to create all this negative stuff, these negative thoughts and these negative feelings, I have the ability to create positive ones. The challenge is when you're in this moment of intense negativity, intense fear, intense panic, how do you start creating something positive? It's like, are you kidding me? It's almost kind of frustrating in a way because you're like, you don't see a way out. But here's what I realized, here's what helped me at least, is to find something. So you have to withdraw your focus from the negative and start redirecting it elsewhere. Now, where are you going to redirect it? That's the key. And what I realized, what helped me is to find something that matched. So something that's exciting to you, that's interesting to you, whether it's a new, like visualize some kind of new scenario in your life, like a person that you like, or a business that you want to start, or an adventure that you want to have, a place you want to travel to, a house you want to own, something that really excites you, something that matches, but it has to come close to matching the intensity of the fear and panic that you feel. So it has to be something you're really excited about. Otherwise, it's gonna be hard, like to redirect your attention to like a flower when you're feeling this intense panic and fear, and to be able to hold your attention on a flower it's not a match to pull your attention. You're probably going to keep going. I mean, you could try whatever works for you. But I personally found like videos on YouTube, movies, things around my home that I love, like none of it could match the intensity that I was feeling. So I finally found something that matched that intensity, and I just held my focus there. I just would visualize in my mind the situation that excited me most, and I stayed there. And I replayed memories as well, exciting memories that I've had. So that might be another thing that works for you. So once I had the shift in awareness, realizing, okay, if I can create this, then I can create this other thing. And I prefer this other thing, so I'm going to create this other thing. Meaning positive momentum versus negative momentum. Or negative emotions and thoughts versus positive emotions and thoughts. So that really helped. And then another thing that also I found helpful was a video from Abraham Hicks on dying. It's like 6 minutes long. That kind of snapped me out of it as well, so I'll link that in the video description. And then of course, any Abraham Hicks videos on health or dying are great. I've listened to a handful, but this one in particular, this short one, I just thought was really good. And then the other thing was nature, I noticed, did help calm me down. So for example, a lot of the time the anxiety would be most intense at night when I'm laying in bed inside. And several times I went outside, but there was one night in particular where I went out. It was like kind of late at, like I'd fallen asleep, and then I woke up and I was like sweating and my heart was racing. And I went outside and it was cool out. I live in Florida, so it's usually pretty warm. So the cool air felt really good. And I laid a blanket on the ground, and I kind of got bundled up, and I grabbed another blanket and like bundled up in that and just laid on the ground and looked up at the sky. And there's something about when you're feeling anxious and panicky, looking at something expansive, at least for me, I don't know, maybe everybody's probably different, but looking at the sky, because the sky is something simple, like it's just space, and there's some bright stars, which of course are gorgeous, and then you might have the moon if it's out, and that's gorgeous, but it's very simple. And it kind of settles your body and your mind. I think another good one might be like the ocean, if you have access to that, or a big like body of water, like a lake or something, just something like, or a mountain, whatever calls to you. But just being outside in general, I think just laying down outside and looking up at the sky, even if it's during the day. But something about like nighttime and nighttime, the darkness seems to kind of amplify, for me at least, amplifies negative feelings. So going outside at night and looking up at the stars really helped calm me down. So that in combination with visualizing and picturing and giving your attention to something that's equal in energetic intensity to the negative emotions that you're feeling, that really, 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 really helped me. And I did have, it took a couple days. It wasn't, it wasn't overnight. It was like 2 or 3 days, and even more after that as I continued to like redirect. Just like anytime I would have like fearful thoughts, it was like, okay, and it wasn't about ignoring concerns or sticking my head in the sand. It was just like, okay, is there anything I can do in this moment that would feel good to do? Do I want to go to the ER? Do I want to go to urgent care? Do I feel like that's necessary? Let me check in. I'm conscious, I'm able to talk, I'm able to walk, I'm okay. Whatever symptoms I might be feeling are probably just from the anxiety. So if I just redirect my attention, and honestly, I felt like after I started to do that, I wasn't experiencing anything anymore. But when I was giving my attention to all the negativity, I just feel so many little like sensations and twinges and pricks and tingling, and every time that would happen, I'd apply negative meaning onto it and tell a negative story, and it would make me feel negative emotion, and it would trigger adrenaline in my body, which make my heart rate elevate and race. So so I guess to summarize, I realized I had the ability to create momentum in one direction. I have the ability to create it in another direction that I prefer. I realized I did not prefer that direction, and I prefer this direction. Nature really helps calm you down if you're having anxious thoughts. And then 3, if you're going to redirect your attention to something else, try to find something that matches the intensity of the current state that you feel in the moment. If you're trying to redirect away from how you feel now, if you don't like how you feel now, find something of equal intensity but on the other end of the spectrum. So I think that's it for now. I guess, yeah, I can't think of anything else. I hope that's helpful to somebody. I don't know how to end this video. Thanks for watching.